Hello, I'm Robert, fact checker. Welcome to my channel. I'm fact checker and helping people who are scared of many things. I'm particularly helping those in our Facebook group, Doomsday Debunked, and the people on Quora and Twitter who follow me. And this time it's about the World Health Organization, just what they said about AstraZeneca, to explain some of the background, go into a bit more depth. I know that it's been on the news quite a bit, but it hasn't really been explained in such depth, so I'm just going to explain a few things. This is from their press briefing today. So, first of all, the headline is that it likely protects against severe disease, even in regions with the South African variants. And they recommend using a longer time period of 8 to 12 weeks between the first and the second dose for this particular vaccine. There is enough data from it now. Now, with the age 65 plus, then their result had a very wide confidence interval. By that they mean that it actually varied all the way from 0%, it could have had no effect at all at age 65, right up to a very high level of protection. But that is because they had so little data for age 65. The problem was that in the AstraZeneca trial, the people aged 65 plus were recruited late into the trial, and then they were also much more careful than the younger group to protect themselves. So they had very few cases. So there wasn't much data for the people aged 65 plus in the AstraZeneca trials. They have more data coming along, but it won't probably be available until March from the trial in the United States. However, they have several other lines of evidence for the age 65 that first of all, the results they have, so they have a wide confidence interval, are indistinguishable from the younger group. Not too surprising because it's got such a wide confidence interval, but there's certainly no evidence there against the age 65 being protected. And then they looked at the actual immune response, which and the immune response is nearly as strong amongst the 65-year-olds and older, and they just have no age limit. They say they could be used to any age, based on their scientific understanding of what is going on. Then they see no reason why it shouldn't give good protection at age 65. And then a final point they did some modelling. Even if there's only 10% protection to age 65 plus, it still is well worth vaccinating them. Now, do bear in mind that if you are vaccinated, I explained in the previous video that if you are vaccinated, then do continue to take all the other precautions. Indeed, we should be even more careful. I've already explained that in the previous video, so I won't explain it again. I will put a link in the video description. And so long as you do that, then vaccinating with AstraZeneca will definitely reduce your risk. And they think it'll reduce it hugely. Then for pregnant women and for women breastfeeding, it's the same as they said for Pfizer, that if you are at risk, they have no reason to think it's going to be any reason that will harm you. They just don't have the data yet to give you the proper advice as to, if a pregnant woman is in one of the high-risk groups, or they have comorbidities, they say no reason not to vaccinate. They don't mention, but there has also been some evidence from women who became pregnant during the trials. And then there has also been evidence of women who became pregnant with the natural disease. And there's no evidence at all of any harm to a woman in pregnancy. And same with breastfeeding, lactating. If you've got COVID, then there's no evidence yet onto how much lasting immunity there is from natural infection. So they just say if you've got already had it, get both doses. They don't recommend vaccines for international travellers. There are millions of international travellers, and this would require vast numbers of vaccines to vaccinate them all. And the main reason for vaccinating an international traveller would be to try and stop it from going from one country to another. And they just don't have the evidence yet as to whether it does much, how much it does to prevent transmission. It protects against severe disease and death and from symptomatic disease, but they don't know what it does for transmission. Right, so now talking about the variants. So has little effect on the mild disease, but preliminary analysis showed it should have quite a marked reduction in its effect, and they think on the severe disease. Indirect evidence of protection against severe disease. These are just my notes. So they see that even if there's reduction in the impact of the vaccine to prevent COVID, there's no reason not to recommend its use even in countries with circulation of the variants. So that's the thing I explained in my previous video, but I'll explain it again. That if you, they said that vaccines generally, and then they have also independent evidence that COVID is like this, that the more severe the effect, the more effective the vaccine. So it turns symptomatic disease into asymptomatic, so it doesn't reduce the number of infections that hugely. It reduces symptomatic more, and it reduces the severe disease even more. The evidence they have so far suggests it just about stops severe disease, and then it would be even more effective against death. So that is there. So they think that it will still be very effective against the South African variant for the severe disease and for death. And there's a technical reason for that. We have it down here. Where do I explain it? Yeah, I already explained that before, but I just want to explain it again. T cells. I'll just find it a minute. Oh yeah, that was about the 65-year-olds. Yes, the other thing is that their 65-year-old sample they were all vaccinated within 4 to 6 weeks, so they would expect higher efficacy if it was 8 to 12 weeks. And they look at the antibodies and cell-mediated immunity. It's almost the same as in younger people, and so they're very confident that this vaccine is well protective of 65 years old. And that's a bit about modelling data. Now let's look T cell. What do I have to look in this page? Let's just do a little search for cell and I'll find that section. Oh yes, here we are. Third line is T cell response. Evidence is presented to SAGE the view that maintenance of T cell response would be strong against this variant, against the South African variant. And that's a bit about the highest response to the most severe disease. And these are just my notes. It's not a transcript because there's no transcript available yet for, I don't think, maybe there is. No, I don't think there is. So that's the T cells, and so the T cells, they look out for the cells that have already been infected. They detect the evidence of infection and destroy the cells. And so whether they whether they recover quickly or go on to the severe disease it seems to depend on their adaptive T cell response. So if the AstraZeneca is managing to get your body to learn. So yes, so I explained in the previous video. I'll explain again. If you've got T cells, the antibodies, they latch onto the virus, and they stop the virus from entering a cell. The T bodies, the T cells, then they sniff around looking for a cell that looks as if it's been infected because it's been changed in a way that makes it seem, oh, this one looks as if it's been infected. When they do that, they kill the cell. So they stop the infection at the source in the cell of where this virus is trying to replicate. So the T cell response is very useful once you've got lots and lots of infected cells in your body. Then the T cells could go around and get rid of them. So if they recover quickly, if you've got lots of T cells, then you can likely recover quickly from the mild disease because you've got lots of T cells going around mopping up all the infection in your body, which is something that the antibodies can't do. The antibodies can deal with the viruses that are circulating in your blood. They can't deal with the infected cells so well that the viruses have already infected. And so the T cells look out for cells that have already been infected. So the T cells are whether it goes on from mild to the severe disease seems to depend on the adaptive T cell response. And they were asked earlier in the press conference if there was a risk of the vaccine causing a cytokine storm, and they said that because of the kind of responses that they gave a technical word, Th1 or something, I'm not quite sure what it means, I haven't looked it up, but they said that because of the type of immune response, then it's not likely to have to do this. And there's no evidence of anything like that as a result of the vaccine. And so the vaccine is producing it's triggering these T cells, which are very effective at stopping the severe disease and helping patients to recover quickly from the mild disease. And so they went on to explain that how the like South Africa, they talked about if a country has the choice of multiple vaccines, they can choose to use some of the vaccines for some subpopulations that are most at risk. So for instance, you've got a subpopulation that's most at risk from the South African variant. And but for other countries, South Africa is very high tech. It's got very able to do genomic sequencing. It knows where the South African variant is, or well, whatever it is, the B1. It's got quite a complicated name. The WHO say to try not to call it by the countries, but it becomes so established really. We talk about the United Kingdom variant, the South African variant, but they say it's nothing. It mightn't even have started in South Africa. It's just that South Africa are better at detecting it. And so they are very good at detecting this variant. So they know where it is. But they said that in other countries around the world, if you manage to detect a few cases of the South African variant, it doesn't mean that is spreading out through your country. And it doesn't mean that most people have it. And so, and in any case, if you have the AstraZeneca vaccine, then use it. Because if you've got another vaccine, you've got a choice, and you're spoiled with choice, like we are in some countries, like the United Kingdom is, then you might, depending on the circumstances, if you have lots of the South African variants circulating in your country, which we don't have in the United Kingdom, then you might decide, oh well, we've got the choice of the Pfizer, Moderna, or the AstraZeneca. Well, we've got lots of the South African variant in this particular community, so let's use the Pfizer because it's better against the South African variant. But if you've just got the AstraZeneca and you've got the South African variant, then it's still going to stop people getting sick and dying, getting very sick, the really severe disease and dying. And even if it only has a small reduction in the milder symptoms, then that's well worth doing. That's the main thing that's the main aim right now, is to reduce the severe disease and the deaths. And if we can do that around the world, then we shouldn't wait for the perfect vaccine before stopping people from dying. That's not right. So while we have the AstraZeneca, we have billions of doses of AstraZeneca vaccine available, and these can help stop thousands and thousands of people dying. So we absolutely need to roll them out and vaccinate these people, and then we can think about what we do next if it turns out that depending on if we need to do. So for instance, if we need to stop transmission to bring it really under control, maybe we need to vaccinate them again, but at least we've stopped all those deaths and all those severe diseases. So absolutely we have to do that. And so that's basically what they were saying today. Those were the main things. Talk about the need to expand on genomic surveillance. I talked about that in the previous video. Anything else? Changing in the vaccine strain. So there's an advisory committee for flu, for vaccine strains, and they're going to set up a group to provide advice on COVID as to which strains you want to provide vaccines for. So this depends. If it does continue, depending how long it continues, we may have to do periodic new vaccines, just as we do for flu. So they are already getting that underway and working out how to decide which variants need to be in the vaccines. And you would normally have multiple, like with flu, you have multiple vaccines to different variants in the same flu vaccine, and it would be the same for the COVID vaccines. Anything else? Yes, there's another thing quite interesting they brought up in this press briefing today was this was a question about, yes, that was about the cytokine storms. No, but this was about the if you can test the vaccines, you wouldn't need such huge trials if you can test the vaccines by what they produce. So for instance, if we have enough data from all the other vaccines to say, what it needs to do is need to trigger such and such antibodies and such T cells and B cells and so on, then they could test the vaccines by those correlations of protection, and they wouldn't need to have these large 30,000 people trials. And so that's a thing we may do in the future. Yes, that's the immune profile Th1 is not expected to be associated with the cytokine storms, this type of immune response and immune pathology. And also in non-human primate challenge studies, the vaccines didn't produce anything like that. So they don't think there's any risk of that. Well, that was it. Up between 1 and 2 dose range, it was the 65, that its estimate is 52 to 56%, because it could be from below 0% up to 85%. And that's with the doses too close together, and with them further apart, 12 weeks apart, they're likely to be better. I think I've copied this into the page twice. Pretty sure I've copied that in twice. Oh well. Oh, maybe not. So I think let's just have a quick scan through anything else they covered today. I've done that. Talk about that. And they were remarkable. It was very remarkable, the genomic sequence data, that they've now got nearly 500,000 sequences, and they got the first full genome sequence very quickly on the 10th of January, only 10 days after the virus was discovered. Then China released the first complete genome sequences, and it's actually mutating slower than other viruses like HIV and flu. And so yes, they're finding ways they can update the vaccines and the monoclonal antibodies. And so they're looking at ways, yes, I don't think there's much else here I need to look at. Oh yes, and that's just one more thing that they were asked, why isn't this an emergency use listing? It was the same with Pfizer, that this is an informational press briefing. They haven't yet approved it. The reason is the World Health Organization approve it per manufacturer, not per vaccine. So they have two manufacturers, two nodes, AstraZeneca and the Serum Institute of India, and both are in the last stages of evaluation, and they have meetings on the 12th and the 15th, and expect to have the decisions in mid-February on both of those, and then they will be able to start rolling out AstraZeneca. So the South Africa, their million doses are not from the World Health Organization. They are from a bilateral agreement, because the World Health Organization has not yet started rolling out the COVAX, not from COVAX. That has not yet started with anything except Pfizer. They sent some Pfizer doses to South Africa, but they haven't sent any AstraZeneca yet. So they have to do separate evaluations for every factory, every institute, and they also have to have all the data, and they were kind of telling manufacturers that if you want this to be speeded up, please give the data to the World Health Organization. So it seems that some vaccine manufacturers are being rather slow at releasing the data to the World Health Organization, and they want to be involved early on, as soon as possible, so that they are told about the data early on as it is being collected, ideally. And so that is part of the reason why it's been much faster in, for instance, the United Kingdom are very fast off the bat, and partly we have a faster process, but it's also just a case of releasing the data to the World Health Organization and the amount of data that they need for their very thorough review. And so they have to be extremely careful, because they are not that UK isn't careful, but they have to produce a decision for the entire world. And so a lot of countries don't have their own way of evaluating vaccines. A lot of the ones with weaker healthcare, many countries actually depend entirely. If the World Health Organization approves it, then they're going to go ahead and use it, and then they will say, well, we approve it too. So they have to be very careful, because they're such a big responsibility. And so once it's gone through the World Health Organization, you can be absolutely, it's got very, very, very robust examination of it. And so, and they have this separate listing for every manufacturer. They don't just evaluate the vaccine, they evaluate how it is being manufactured, and they will give a clean certificate that it is being manufactured properly in the Serum Institute, and they look at what they're producing. That's it. I'll just upload this. Okay. And, so they're giving some kind of time scale. That they've got the AstraZeneca, they've mentioned there's a couple of Chinese ones that they're evaluating, and then there's Johnson & Johnson, there's Novavax. Some of those. I'm not quite sure when the timeline for those. It seems it'll be rather later that those will actually, we have the actual doses for those. But there are a whole lot of vaccines coming along. There's the Russian gamma Sputnik V is also in line. So they're very busy bees in the World Health Organization. They've got so many different vaccines now, and they'll be coming out through February. We can expect one vaccine after another is going to be approved by them. It's really coming with a big flood